Today in our 2001 GMC Sierra 2500 short bed, we'll be installing the B&W turnover underbed gooseneck trailer hitch part number BWG NRK 1067. Next we'll go over the handle, operation, and installing of the gooseneck hitch ball. To operate the handle, we'll simply pull out, rotate it forward, and it will lock the handle open so that we can put our hitch ball in place. Then to lock the hitch ball in position, we'll simply rotate it back towards the rear of the vehicle and allow the spring to relock the pin. Now with the handle open, we'll drop the ball in place, close the handle, which will allow the pin to go through the ball and lock it in place, allowing us to set up for towing our gooseneck trailer. Then, once we're done towing, we'll go ahead and pull the handle back out, remove the ball, turn it over, put it back into the hitch, putting it in the stored position, rethrowing the handle, locking it in place. Now to begin our install, we're first going to go ahead and lower and remove the spare tire to give us some more working room underneath. Next, we'll remove both rear wheels. Now with the wheels removed, we're going to go ahead and remove the rubber isolator from the metal hanger, both in front of and behind the rear axle. To remove the rubber isolator from the metal hanger, we'll spray each one with a spray lubricant. And then use a pry bar pliers to remove the rubber isolator from the metal hanger. This will allow us some flexibility with the exhaust and assist in removing the rear heat shield and installing the new hitch. Note, to get additional clearance between the tailpipe and the bottom of the bed, we can take a block of wood and put it between the tailpipe and the frame. Next, we'll need to remove the heat shield. We're going to remove it from just behind the hatch channel that's above the fuel tank, all the way back to just before the cross member where our spare tire is set. Let's go ahead and mark the sections and then cut it out. Now to remove the heat shield, we're going to use a cutoff wheel. You can also use a sawzall or a pair of tin snips. We'll cut both the front and rear sections and then remove the two fasteners in the center that secure it to the hatch channel. Note, these fasteners are Loctited in and over time will freeze up. They can be very difficult to remove. In some cases, you may even need to drill or cut the fastener out. So in severe cases like this one, it may be necessary to cut the fasteners. Using our cutoff wheel, we're going to go ahead and cut the head of the bolt, break it off, and then we can remove the heat shield. Now we're going to move into the bed of the pickup. We'll need to measure out the length and center of our pickup bed. Now because our application is the short truck bed box, we'll be going to 44¼ inches. Using our paint marker, I'll go ahead and mark that length now. Next, I'll measure from side to side and find the center of the bed. Once we find the center of the pickup bed, I'll go ahead and use a 1/4 inch bit to drill out our pilot hole. Once we have the pilot hole drilled out, we can go ahead and enlarge it to the 4-inch hole that'll allow for the gooseneck throat to come up through the pickup bed. Now to make the large hole, we're going to use a 4-inch hole saw. To assist, to make sure that we cut out a nice clean hole, we've already got a template drilled out in a piece of plywood. We're using a piece of 1-inch plywood with a pre-drilled hole. We'll center that over the hole and then go down through it using it as a pilot, and we can stand on the wood to help hold it in place. Next, while we're in the pickup bed, we're going to go ahead and set our lift device in place. The lift device will sit down over top of our pre-drilled large hole for the gooseneck throat. The bracket that goes down through the hole will go down through the throat, and the locking pin will go through our pre-drilled hole here in the lift device. Then, once we have it locked in position, we can use the bolt that goes to the top of our lift device to pull our head up into place and hold it in position while we install our fastener. Now, measuring from the hat channel, it's just above the rear axle. We're going to go forward 2.5 inches and make a mark. We'll make a second mark approximately 1 to 1.5 inches in front of that. And we're going to cut a V in the bed seam to allow for our cross rails to be fed over top of the frame. Here we can use a hacksaw, sawzall, or we're going to use our cutoff wheel that we used earlier. Now with our notch made in the pickup bed body seam, we can start feeding the cross rails up over the frame and into position. The angled piece will be the forward rail and will sit with the long angle facing the front of the truck and the pre-drilled holes facing the rear or center section of the hitch. The rear rail, which has the pre-drilled threaded holes in it, will go on the back side of the center section. You'll notice that the pre-drilled threaded holes are offset. The offset section will go down. Note, for the front rail, it will be oriented so that the pre-drilled holes will face the rear of the vehicle. The second hole from the driver's side here will be up over the fuel tank and can be difficult to get to. Provided with our install kit, along with the 1.5 inch half-inch bolt, is an O-ring. We can put the bolt in position and then roll the O-ring in place all the way down against the metal to help hold our bolt in place until we get our center section and hardware in position. We're now ready to go ahead and put our rails in the truck. Once we get the front rail in place, we'll go ahead and slide it forward so that it'll be out of the way. Now, to rotate the rear rail up into position, you can use a wrench to assist. We'll rotate as far as we can by hand, and then take the wrench, rotate it completely, and scoot it back against the hat channel to make room for the center section. You can repeat the same process with the front rail. Now we're ready to set the center section in place with the handle on the driver's side. I've got the pin pulled out and locked away till I get it up in place and can put it through the lift device. All right, now that we've got the center section lifted in place, we'll slide the front rail back so that the holes will line up. And then we'll adjust the rear rail so that the holes in the center section line up with the threaded portion of the rear rail. Once we have them lined up, we'll go ahead and install the hardware. Starting with the front rail and the bolt that we pre-installed, we'll slide on a flat washer, split lock washer, and then a nut. Now for the center and passenger side attachment point, we'll take the bolt, feed it through the front rail, through the center section, where we'll install the fasteners, the flat washer, split lock washer, and then the nut. We'll install each fastener finger tight until we have them all in place. Now to secure the rear rail to the center section, we'll use a flat washer, split lock washer, and bolt. We'll go through the center section pre-drilled hole into the pre-threaded rear rail. Now with our fasteners securing the center section to the cross rails, we're ready to start installing the side bracket. Here on the driver's side, there's an electrical connector that'll need to be removed from the manufacturer's pre-drilled hole in the side of the frame. We'll move on the inside of the frame and just pry the push pin fastener out of position. Once we pry it out of place, it'll expose the hole and allow us to get our hardware in position. Now we'll move to the side bracket. The side bracket is a two-piece bracket that we'll need to assemble. Take the carriage bolt, fit it through the side bracket into the square hole, and then line it up and install a flat washer, split lock washer, and then a nut. I'll repeat the same process for the other two attachment points. Now that we have our hardware installed finger tight, we're ready to go ahead and install it onto the vehicle. We'll line the side bracket up with the cross rails as they extend over top the frame. To secure the forward attachment point of the side bracket to the cross rail, we'll use the 1.5 inch long bolt going through the cross rail into the side bracket. Then we'll install a flat washer, split lock washer, and then a nut. Now for the rear attachment point for the side bracket to cross rail, we'll use our 1.5 inch long bolt, split lock washer, flat washer, going through the side bracket into the pre-drilled threaded hole of the rear cross rail. Next, we're going to install the large U-bolt. The U-bolt is going to go around the frame and through the pre-drilled holes here in the side bracket. Keep in mind when installing your U-bolt to be mindful of any brake lines or wiring so that you don't crush it when you install the U-bolt. To secure our U-bolt, we'll use a split lock washer and a nut for both attachment points. Next, we'll install the 3/4 inch bolt that secures the rear attachment point for the side bracket to the frame. It'll be installed from inside the frame coming out. The hardware we'll be using is going to be the U-shaped spacer that will go into the oval slot in the frame. Then we'll install the large 3/4 inch washer onto the bolt, through the frame, through the slotted block, and through the pre-drilled hole in our side bracket. Then we'll move to the outside of the frame where we can install the split lock washer and then the nut. Now with all the hardware installed here on the driver's side, we'll move over to the passenger side and repeat the same process. Now with all the hardware installed, we'll go ahead and tighten them down and then torque to specifications as indicated in the instructions. As we tighten them down, there is a specific tightening sequence, starting with the cross rails to center section first. Now with our 3/4 inch bolt tightened down and torqued to specifications, we'll move to the U-bolt, where we'll tighten it down. Keep in mind we'll tighten it down evenly, top to bottom, and then torque to specifications as per the instructions. Now we're ready to install the handle for the hitch lock. The handle will go through the slot here in the hitch center section and then out over the frame. We'll line up the hole in the handle with the hitch, install the bolt through the handle, then through the tab of the hitch, through the hitch pin, and then install the lock nut. Once we have it installed, we'll go ahead and tighten it down. Now with our handle tightened down, we'll use the pre-drilled holes in the hitch center section as pilot holes for the U-bolt chain hold down. Now to drill out the holes up through the pickup bed, we're going to use a smaller pilot bit first and use the step bit process, enlarging to our final size of a 1/2 inch. Now once we have our chain holes drilled out, we'll take the U-bolts and drop them into place. With our U-bolts in place, we'll move back underneath the vehicle where we'll install our chain hold down spring. Spring will go over the U-bolt and we'll secure it with a lock nut. We'll install each of our springs and lock nuts hand tight until we have them all in place. Then we can go ahead and tighten them down. We'll leave about a 1/4 inch of thread remaining below the nut. Now with our U-bolts installed and secured, we can go ahead and reinstall the exhaust. Now with everything reinstalled, we're ready to hit the road. And that does it for the install of the B&W Turnover Underbed Gooseneck Trailer Hitch, part number BWG NRK 1067 on our 2001 GMC Sierra.